research that you mentioned that was done in the past that could still stand to today, what would you say is um, the best piece of information that we have in favor of Noah's Ark, and what is a piece of information that can still stand today that is against that claim?
From past research?
Yes, I mean before the
Oh,
research that you have done with more
well,
modern technology.
yeah, um, well, one thing we have video of it, but and this is where I would say half the critics will accept it, others will say, "Oh, they faked it somehow." There's a metal detector scans in the '80s that showed a pattern every 3 feet or every 9 feet in some locations, and that's where you have these old photographs where they're connecting the construction ribbon together, and it's showing this pattern of metal. That was only inside the boat, according to the people on video being talking about it. Baumgartner, um, he's on video in the old raw archives, saying, "Wow, we got a great results here. We have a pattern every so I don't forget how many feet they said." Um, so whether he denies that now, it's on video what they did back then. I think that's a really key piece that was non-destructive. It suggests there's near surface activity or results from some of the decaying that even affects near the surface because the metal detector doesn't go too deep, unlike GPR. But these were the best. I think they used White's Electronics, an American company, and they gave Ron the best models. So you have these massive, coil heads, and so I don't know what they can go down to. It depends on the soil type too. If it's high iron or clay, you're going to get bad results. But I believe, definitely there was hot spots in a pattern. So I think that was a key thing. The measurements, I've been there with tourists who measure, they want to see it themselves. So we measure on the ground. We get the 300 cubits, we get the 515 feet. That, this was done in the past though. Again, the measurements, let's see what else. The GPR, what's interesting about the GPR, again, you have this conflict with people, can they use different antennas? So we had Ron did his own GPR. um, the very initial one they did was with a 500 megahertz antenna, which is pretty shallow. The higher the megahertz, the less it will penetrate, but the higher resolution. So like 500 megahertz, usually, unless it's shallow features, you're not going to get pretty deep in the soil. But if you do 250, 200, 100, or below, you're going to go much deeper and the penetration and get like looking for objects down below, but you'll get less resolution. So if it's a big object, you could see it, but if it's like a coin or like a hammer or whatever, you're not going to find it. Um, so Ron though said that he got because he made little models of what he said it used to look like, but he said he used different antennas. I haven't seen video. I do believe he did. I don't think he lied about it, but there was no like published report. It was his little book he made, and then he made his own video about all his research. But there is not what they did with the '87 GPR that Baumgartner and both Dr. Baumgartner and Dr. Barak Tutam did. Now they published all their scans in that report. It's on our website, and they talk about the antenna they used. I think that one was I think it was 150. I think it was a 250 or 200 megahertz. So it was a lower frequency than Ron's. So it went deeper than that 86 survey. But Ron even said he again used different antennas. But I know Tom Finner, who's the guy who ran the radar, a geologist, but he was a radar operator for the group. He says we cannot duplicate Ron's results. Again, they used a different antenna than Ron. Ron was getting shallow results. They went deep, but they did find, I mean, you read the report that was published by all of them, and at the end they say there's nothing in here that goes against it being Noah's Ark. And so that report I think is really good because it does show that there's some type of, when you put in the terrain topography, because the ship, you see photos as a central hump, whether that's material that's collected and decayed, so you have this like collapse of the ship, or as the critics will say, it's a ridge of rock. But you have the central hump, so it's not like a flat. There's little valleys, and it's not just a flat ship on top where you're seeing the photographs. So when they apply the terrain correction to the data, they're seeing that the reflections are getting about 4 meters down, I think it was, and you see it in their data, a lot of the scans, you'll see this double, like a V shape. When they correct it with the terrain, it comes to be almost planar, like a flat plane, as reflection across most of the site. And so that's where they were like, oh, we need to core drill down to see what that is. And of course, they failed on that the next year. But I think that's something you can say, hey, they were seeing something that was consistent across the site that they didn't figure out what it was. And that you can say it's kind of the last. They wrote a report, and that was it. No one's done anything since up until now, or in more recent times. So, in regards to showing that there is not just a random rock, and definitely not a solid block of rock, you could point back to these like the GPR and for patterns of metal. You can say the metal detectors. I think those are the key things. And again, the shape and the people measuring it. Now, what have somebody done in the past that they can say, well, maybe this is natural, or just I don't think there's something that disproves it. You can't, until more work is done, you can't say, well, one thing disproved it. Otherwise, I would not be wasting my time out there. Um, yeah, I have no. It's not like it's my honor, my name is involved. Who am I? So for me, I think there's something there. That's why I'm involved. It's not like I need to do this to preserve the Jones name or something. um, so I think there are things where we're if you look at the story, you have to be really into the story to understand things, some of these claims. But it's more about stuff outside especially where Ron was claiming that are again that we've disproved. Not about Noah's Ark, um, but that was wrong at his conclusion. Not to say he lied, but he just interpreted the data wrong. So one thing Ron claimed, and I did a paper which I presented at the seventh Noah's Ark symposium, and the paper's on our website, and I mentioned it in a short video. I have not made a long video about this on YouTube because I know it's going to cause problems for people, but I will. My focus is not just to stir up trouble, but I want to go with the data leads, and I'll tell you right now. You put this on your channel, that's no problem. But Ron claimed that he found ancient inscriptions up by the Iranian border. Now, the site is about a mile downhill from Iran. Of course, we're on Turkey's side. And he showed these photographs of what he said was a ship shape carving onto the rocks of the border markers between Iran and Turkey. And he um, they had a reconstruction drawing. He said, "Well, he said when I originally went up there in '84, I saw the complete the stele, this stone structure, and then the Turks broke it up, and then they put it into different border markers, and so but the pieces. Here's some photographs of the pieces. But he says that here's the reconstruction. So he drew out what he believed. It's at a boat shape, like the same shape you see from the aerial photographs. They had 8 faces, 2 birds above." That famous, that ridge of like a cliff. It's a saddleback ridge of limestone rock above the ark, and then a mountain that you don't see anymore right beside it. He says this was the drawing of what he saw carved on the rocks. So, man, you have a drawing, a mile away from the boat shape, an ancient drawing that you can say, wow, people, maybe tourists, 5,000 years ago, who knows, thousands of years ago, carved this. We have all these ancient historians who said pilgrims and tourists came out and they saw the ark up to the time of Christ, maybe even past the time of Christ, and then people forgot where it was. But people writing about it, so you could still see parts and portions of the ark. So who knows? Like, so the idea that you found an ancient inscription is really key. And you have this broken piece that says like you see like an oval end of like a rounded end, and it does look like the ship shape, but you don't see any faces in it. And so that was all Ron provided, but he would talk about it in interviews and it's in his book and things like that. So when he died, everyone's tried to get up there to see it. Even when he was alive, he tried to bring people and the Turks with back then, when he first went up there, it was easy to do stuff. Now it's a controlled zone, electronic fences, border walls, all that type of stuff. So it was very hard to get up there. Now we met a Turkish archaeologist. She was a student. She had her bachelor's. She was working on her master's. We don't work with her anymore, but at the time, I told her, "Hey, if you want to do something for me," I paid her. I said, "Okay, we'll give you, thousands of dollars. Get me up to that border. I would like to document these markers." So we made 3 trips. She was able to do the job. And the interesting thing is, or the cool thing is, I was able to fly a drone. So we went up the first trip, and we finally saw the markers. They were behind barbed wire on the Turkish side, the right beside it. So we couldn't access the side that had the so-called inscriptions, which was on the Iranian side. So and it was this different blocks of stone cemented together to form a pillar, but maybe not too high. Again, you can see the documentation on my website and Ron's old videos. So once we saw that, and the general in charge of the area said, "Well, we can't let you go through the fence. 'Cause the other side's mined. It's a border with mines. You blow yourself up." So so we knew it was well protected, that no one touched it because it's hard to get to. Number one, and number two, it's behind this fence and a mine. So we assumed, okay, well, let's work on trying to get permission to figure out how to document the other side, because it's not like going to be taken away or someone's going to steal these rocks, because it's in this really safe zone. So then the guy suggested, the general up there said, well, you can fly a drone and fly it and take the photographs. And she just need photographs of all the sides, especially the Iranian side. So I thought, wow, how are you going to do that? That you're basically flying it into Iran, and then you need all this permission, blah, blah, blah. Well, within a month, we got permission. So that lady helped us really. She said it had to, and she brought me, it wasn't just her doing it. She didn't know what she was doing for this stuff. So obviously I had to go along. Oh, but she told me, so we had to get the permission all the way to Ankara, which is the capital. I don't know who they talked to, but they got permission um, for me to fly my own drone. It wasn't even the military flying it up there. So I had very strict orders, instructions. The general watched what I was filming most of the time. Basically said you can't film the big area. You have to take pictures, no video. You have to take pictures of just what you're trying to focus in on. I never asked them, like, what did the Iranians on the other side know? Because I assumed they were alerted that we're going to be doing this. I was thinking, what if my drone, DJI drones, which I use, they could fly. They have this history of flying away, just like disappearing on their own. By this was 2022, so by then they were less likely to do that. But I was thinking of, oh, it's going to crash or set off a mine, or these are expensive equipment too. Cause the international incident, but I was able to fly my drone into Turkey. I'm sorry, into Iran, and take all these pictures. So then we noticed when I got the pictures back, and we started comparing it, we noticed on the Turkish side of these border markers, they put in, I don't know, it's not Roman numerals, but whatever you call, like our number system, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see it's like the marker where Ron said the boat was on, as marker number 65. So on the Turkish side, sprayed in black is 65. 500 meters away is another marker. It says 66, 67, then over there 64. And I documented four, I think of them, or five of these markers. And so it's the same pattern. Turkish side have this. Now the Iranian side, they have numbers too. And the Iranian side, the numbers are in Farsi, which is very similar to Arabic. So I recognize some of them because they have some of the numbers are the same, but others are not. Well, guess what? The number 5 in Farsi is an upside down heart. And you look very closely at Ron, in fact, we didn't have to fly the drone for this. You looked very closely at Ron Wyatt's black and white photograph. He's standing up by the marker and he's pointing, and you see this boat shape that's broken. You look very close. It's not the pointed boat shape, because the very end,
Mm,
the carving actually curves up. So it's part of the half of the heart. That was the Farsi 5. And then when you looked at the other ones, so now that's not even there, because they always reconstructed, or now it's like painted black, so they don't even carve it on the rocks anymore. These numbers on the Iranian side, But if you look at on the other ones, they have the Iranian numbers. So it has 65, 66, 64, um, and so then you're like, oh. And then in Ron's book, or his widow wrote, but in the book they have one more marker that sadly I did not document, because I didn't ask permission to. I for whatever reason I thought these markers were all like nearby. The one that he also photographed is way up at the very end of this escarpment, this cliff. So it's like the pinnacle. There's a Turkish military checkpoint, not checkpoint, but tower up there. Well, that's the border too. There's a marker, and so you can see in Ron's photograph, he's standing next to this border marker, and he has the number, and it turns out to be 63, I think. But he interprets the 3, which is you look at the Arabic or Farsi, look up Google what a 3 looks like. He attributed that to be the bird, like it's a wing. It has this like thing. It looks like a wing. But even his drawing, his reconstruction of what you see in his reconstruction, it doesn't match exactly what's in his photograph. In his photograph, you realize no, it's not even a bird, but in his reconstruction, it's a bird. But here we have the photo of the actual carving, and so then you realize, oh, that's 63. Now I don't have a drone photo of that, but we have his photographs, and again, it shows this pattern that they were marking. They numbered the border towers, these stone pillars, so that was one thing that was a disappointer. I mean, it doesn't disprove Noah's Ark. It just these are things outside of the boat itself that he was trying to, trying to find more proof that for things, and he misinterpreted big time the data there. He's. I'm not going to attack him. He did a lot of hard work out there, but that's something that you could say that yeah, that didn't pan out. It's not well known about this point. It's on the website, but I haven't made like a big video saying no, we disproved Ron White. But the other thing that we're working on that we don't know what will the results be, but visually you can say, okay, there's a problem, and that's the anchor stones. I'll just say that visually you look at them, they're basalt, which is volcanic rock. You're in a volcanic area that Mount Ararat, a lot of the big mountains around there are all volcanic. Now our site, we have sedimentary layers. There's some volcanic rock mixed in the mud flow, but it's you're finding sandstone, limestone, fossils. So you're talking about shallow water seashells, corals. But anyways, where the village was about 20 miles away, where you find most of these stones that Rom is saying they're anchor or drone stones. Um, when I first talked to him on the phone, I was a kid in high school and middle school. The big thing is if these are from Noah's Ark, then you think they'll be different. Like they wouldn't be the same stone where he started. I mean, where he landed. Like the stone would be unique. It would be some. Let's say he started in Pennsylvania or like Middle East somewhere. Then whatever the local stone is, if he tied these stones to the boat, now I don't know if Noah's Ark could still have drogue stones because it's a good way of stabilizing ships. But these stones themselves, are they actually Noah's Ark drogue stones? We're gonna get to the bottom of it. But when I talked to Ron, he's like, "Oh, I was told." He told us me. He said these were This is a type of granite that's only found in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I was a kid. I don't, I was like, oh wow, this is great. So they're unique. There's no granite in this area. It's from Michigan. Maybe Noah's Ark started in America. Or it depends on how the continents were together back then. Anyways, so that was my thing. But then you get out there and look at the stone. You bring in even Christian geologists and regular, not regular, but non-Christian, like there's the Turkish geologists and geophysicists. They're like, oh no, this is basalt. I mean, you can even I'm not a geologist, but you can look at something and say, okay, this is marble, this is granite, this is basalt. You can just tell visually by the crystal size and the color and that. Yeah, this is volcanic rock. So and the when you think of volcanic rock, like the village where it's at, it sits on this lava bed, and all around it is volcanic rock. So you can say the logical, without even doing any testing, you can say, oh, the logical conclusion you can say is that these stones came from nearby because it's a volcano there, volcanic cone here, it's on a lava bed. Here's some volcanic rock with holes. Um, to, but I'm not going to do that. So we're gonna fully test it. We already taken our samples. We just haven't sent them off to a lab. But we taken samples of almost all the stones that are visible today, and then outcrops of volcanic rock nearby. And so now I was trying to figure out how we're going to do this because, again, it comes down to you don't have scientists really interested in doing this type of work. So I've been kind of been like this. I'm a researcher, but I'm not a geologist or archaeologist. So my goal has been like a facilitator, trying to get people interested, bring them out, the GPR experts, like core drillers or whoever, like connecting back with Dr. Sally Brock Tuton. And so I told Solly, hey, let's test this. It's never been done. Everyone just says, hey, these are anchor stones to take a picture. Let's actually test them. Um, and not to disprove anyone, just to see, hey, I can have final proof of where they're from. And so I'm like, how do you do this? I'm not a geologist. And it just so happened 2 years ago, I was looking at the news. I get these, 'cause I'm always looking at archaeology or science news. So Google feeds you what you like. And there was an article there that was a peer-reviewed article by an Israeli scientist. Now, they had tested basalt stones from near the Sea of Galilee in Israel, and they explained the whole process, what they did in their article. It was a journal article. It wasn't a news article. It was in the news, but anyways, they explained their whole mythology and what they did and the equipment they used, and so now we can do the exact same thing with this. And what they were trying to show is these cities from the time of Christ in the Second Temple period around the Sea of Galilee. They're actually all made from basalt, black, volcanic rock. They want to know where do they come from? Are they nearby source? What it means about the economy and the effort involved. And they found they were able to do isotopic testing and get the exact from the minerals in the in these rocks, find the source which was nearby. So we would like to do the same with these. Later, I asked Ron. It might have been after he had passed away. It might have been one of his family members who said it was this Upper Peninsula granite. And I found out it was a biblical. He had a PhD, but he was not a geologist. It was a Dr. Bill Shea who's passed away, and I knew him, but he was a biblical scholar. You would say maybe he's an archaeologist, but his degree was not in geology. I don't know how he got to granite, but none of the there's so far been 26 found. Ron found 12 in his lifetime, 11 or 12 after he died. Others have found more, but I've never seen one of them that's granite. There's no granite in that area right there. So if it is granite, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. There's no granite. Um, so that's so those are two things you could say from the past where and I can do some more little details about from the GPR work, but those are the big things I could think of where we're understanding it better, or we will get the final answer on some of these things that whatever reason people just don't want to test it, just want to repeat, say, yeah, that's what it is.